Hey everyone, it's Jimmy here reminding you to hit like and subscribe and the notification bell before we begin. Also, be sure to drop a comment saying where you're tuning in from, what you're doing, or just saying that you're doing your part. In a quiet Columbus neighborhood, a harrowing mystery unfolded on the morning of December 30th, 2025. Two young children crying alone inside a house prompted concerned friends to call police. What officers discovered was every family's worst nightmare. The children's father, 37-year-old Dr. Spencer Tepe, and mother, 39-year-old Monique Tepe, were found dead. Their two children, just 4 and 1 years old, were found physically unharmed but terrified, left alone with their slain parents for several hours. This shocking double slaying of a beloved local dentist and his wife has left the community reeling and investigators desperate for answers. The alarm was raised when Dr. Spencer Tepe failed to show up for work that Tuesday morning, a behavior completely out of character for the reliable dentist. The owner of Athens Dental Depot, Dr. Mark Valrose, grew worried and called 911 around 9:03 a.m. to request a welfare check. He noted that Spencer was always punctual and that no one could reach either him or his wife, Monique. Columbus police officers were dispatched to the Tepe residence on North 4th Street in the city's Wineland Park area to check on the family. An officer arrived at approximately 9:22 a.m., but got no answer at the door. Growing more concerned, several of Spencer's co-workers drove to the house themselves. When they arrived, a friend heard the children crying inside with no adult responding. This was shocking and again, completely out of character for this responsible couple. Something was very, very wrong. This friend called 911 again at 9:57 a.m., urgently reporting that he could see Spencer's body on the floor through a window and feared his friend was dead. Police officers rushed back to the scene and forced entry into the home. Inside, they found a heartbreaking scene. Spencer and Monique were both unresponsive and bleeding from apparent gunshot wounds, with their kids present. Tragically, this meant the little ones had likely been alone in the house with their parents' bodies for several hours overnight before help arrived. Detectives very quickly determined they were dealing with a double slaying and that neither of the two dead individuals were responsible. Crucially, police found no signs of forced entry into the house and no weapon at the scene. Investigators believe the couple was killed in the overnight hours while their children slept. Detectives estimate the attack took place upstairs in the Tepe home, sometime between roughly 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. This timeline was bolstered by a chilling piece of evidence. A surveillance camera captured an unidentified person walking near the residence during that very time frame. In the grainy footage, a figure in light-colored pants and a dark hooded coat can be seen walking slowly down a snowy alley with their head down and hands in their pockets. Columbus police released this video to the public, calling the unknown individual a, quote, person of interest in the case. As of now, no suspects have been named, and the motive for the attack remains a mystery, and authorities haven't disclosed any other evidence publicly. One spring afternoon in 1999, a well-liked auto shop owner left his garage to assist a stranded motorist on a rural Colorado road and was never seen again. The disappearance of 42-year-old Dale Williams in Nucla, Colorado, baffled his community and law enforcement for decades. It's a tiny town in western Colorado, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone. So when Dale vanished, it shook the town to its core. Williams was known for his generosity. He dressed as Santa at Christmas, drove the high school homecoming parade car, and always stopped to help drivers in need. Disturbingly, his helpful nature may have led him into a trap, leaving behind a mystery that endured for years. Recently, though, there's been an extremely significant breakthrough in the case, though as you'll see, justice still may remain elusive. On May 27, 1999, Dale Williams went to work at his auto body shop as usual. Around midday, he received a phone call from someone needing roadside assistance near the tiny community of Bedrock. A friend who was with Dale later recalled that the caller sounded like a distressed woman. It was odd. Dale's shop specialized in body work, not towing, yet he didn't hesitate to help. It wasn't clear from the context if he knew the woman or why the woman chose to call his shop, but Dale was a really great guy, as you'll see. He left in his white Ford pickup truck to assist the motorist and never returned. When Dale failed to come home that evening, his wife Diana immediately grew concerned. By dawn the next day, she went to his shop and found the door unlocked, a vehicle still on the lift, and Dale's tools left out as if he had stepped away only minutes earlier. His older daughter's high school graduation was just days away, a milestone Dale would never have missed. Knowing this, family and friends feared something was very wrong. They searched local roads and even junkyards, thinking he might have had an accident, but found no trace. Later that day, May 28th, Diana contacted law enforcement and filed a missing person report. Weeks of searching passed with no leads whatsoever. Then, on July 4th, 1999, campers discovered Dale's pickup truck submerged in a muddy river at a remote spot where the Dolores and San Miguel rivers meet. The location was only a few miles from where the mystery caller had claimed to be stranded. Investigators noted that the truck's ignition was on, and it was in low gear, yet tire tracks showed it had rolled slowly off the road into the water without any sign of braking. This suggested it was deliberately sent into the river rather than a random accident. There was still no sign of Dale himself. However, a crucial piece of evidence was recovered: a rifle found in the bed of the truck. Records later showed that this rifle belonged to one of Dale's acquaintances, 43-year-old Dan Bishop. Finding the truck gave investigators hope, but instead it deepened the mystery. With the vehicle offering more questions than answers, attention turned to what role Bishop might have played, if any at all. Dan Bishop had been a longtime friend of the Williams family, which made what investigators learned next even more disturbing. A year earlier, Dale and Diana had helped Bishop's wife escape their marriage, relocating her to another state. It had turned out that Dan Bishop was an aggressive and violent individual with his wife, and she believed that he would take lethal action if she tried to leave. Bishop was enraged that Dale aided his wife's departure and that the couple refused to reveal her whereabouts. In the months after that, a series of bizarre incidents targeted Dale. Someone broke into his shop and left torn-up photos of the Williams and Bishop families outside, along with a handful of bullets scattered on the ground. Days later, Diana discovered that a revolver missing from the shop had been dropped into the overnight slot of her video rental store. Another ominous message. These intimidation tactics were never definitively linked to Bishop at the time, but they certainly raised red flags around him. A few weeks after Dale disappeared, friends and family plastered Nucla with missing person flyers. It seemed like everyone in the small town was willing to help out their good-natured neighbor, but then something weird began to happen. Someone began to tear down the missing persons posts of Dale, a fact that baffled his family and friend, as well as investigators. A hidden camera was set up and caught Bishop himself tearing down the posters at the post office. The fact that a so-called close friend was sabotaging efforts to find Dale stunned everyone. And trust me, based on what happened in 2024, I'm actually shocked that he did this as well. Very odd behavior. But I'll come to that in a moment. When police questioned Bishop, he denied any involvement in the disappearance and claimed he removed the flyers for personal reasons. According to investigators, he also provided an alibi for May 27th that they believe mostly checked out. With no body and only circumstantial clues in 1999, authorities had no choice but to let him go. Still, Bishop remained the prime focus of suspicion in the years that followed. From there, the case would go increasingly cold over the next decades. And of course, I have to mention that this case was covered on Unsolved Mysteries. Unfortunately, though, this didn't turn up any new actionable tips. It wasn't until late 2023 that the Colorado Bureau of Investigation and Montrose County Sheriff's Office reopened the cold case with fresh eyes. In reviewing the evidence, investigators found new pieces to the puzzle that strengthened the case against Dan Bishop. The rifle recovered from Dale's truck was conclusively traced back to Bishop. Investigators also discovered that Bishop's cousin, now deceased, may have helped him plan and carry out the crime. One witness claimed this cousin boasted in jail that without a body, they could never be charged for what they did. Of course, this statement is unverified, but still it put a laser focus back on Bishop. That chilling remark took on new significance. Finally, on October 17th, 2024, 25 years after Dale vanished, police arrested 68-year-old Dan Bishop. However, the authorities revealed that the case against Dan Bishop was entirely circumstantial, a fact that concerned many onlookers. Despite the arrest, this story doesn't have a neat ending, not even close. The evidence against Bishop, though compelling, was still circumstantial, and crucially, Dale's body hadn't been found. In early 2025, during preliminary court proceedings, prosecutors decided there wasn't enough proof to proceed to a trial. The charge against Dan Bishop was dropped for lack of sufficient evidence, and he was released from custody. Officials made it clear that the case remains open and that charges can be refiled if new evidence emerges. So there's obviously a ton of open questions about Dale's case, and I'm not going to go into every one of them. What fascinates me most still is that call he received, and who that woman with the apparent car trouble was. If she wasn't in on it, I have to question why she never came forward when it became well known that Dale went missing. Now I know some of you are thinking that she may have just been passing through town, and that she could have even been from outside Colorado. However, once Dale's story went national with the Unsolved Mysteries segment, I would have thought she may have come forward. Unsolved had an absolutely massive reach at its peak, with viewership in the tens of millions, through first runs and reruns. Personally, I think the authorities should be reaching out very hard for this woman to come forward and perhaps offer her immunity for her part in exchange for testimony. After all, if Dale is charged again and this really was a conspiracy, he has a significant incentive to turn on her. Hey everyone, just a quick reminder to check out my new channel, Lazy Chill Tales, which features creepypasta-style stories and fact or fiction tales. Also, don't forget to check out the Patreon or the YouTube membership if you want to toss me a clam or two and support my work further. Nestled in southeastern Massachusetts lies a mysterious 200 square mile region that has captivated paranormal enthusiasts for decades, the enigmatic Bridgewater Triangle. This area of alleged supernatural activity stretches across the towns of Abington, Rehoboth, and Freetown, with its influence often spilling into neighboring communities. The legend began taking shape when American cryptozoologist Loren Coleman coined the term Bridgewater Triangle in his groundbreaking 1983 work, Mysterious America. Coleman's fascination with this particular region grew from an intriguing pattern he discovered while researching cryptid and paranormal encounters throughout New England. Time and again, unexplained incidents seemed to cluster within the same geographical boundaries, prompting him to map out what he considered a paranormal hot zone. While Coleman initially focused on cryptozoological creatures, later investigations would cast a much wider net, encompassing all manner of supernatural phenomena. At the heart of the triangle's mystique lies the foreboding Hockomock Swamp. The very name carries weight. In Algonquin, Hockomock translates to the place where spirits dwell. This reveals that this wetland held an otherworldly reputation long before Europeans arrived. This vast protected marshland sprawls across the landscape, its dense vegetation and rich wildlife creating an impenetrable wilderness. But according to numerous witnesses, the swamp harbors more than just natural inhabitants. Reports persist of ghostly orbs dancing through the mist and strange creatures lurking in the shadows. Whether these accounts stem from the area's isolated nature or something far more mysterious, Hockomock Swamp has become the beating heart of the Triangle's dark reputation. The region boasts another puzzling landmark, Dighton Rock, a massive 40-ton boulder resting in the Taunton River. This ancient stone canvas displays intricate petroglyphs that have baffled researchers for centuries. Theories about the mysterious carvings range from Portuguese explorers to Native American tribes, yet their true origin remains tantalizingly elusive. For believers in the Triangle's supernatural properties, Dighton Rock serves as yet another piece of the area's enduring puzzle. Local residents and curious visitors describe witnessing odd objects cutting through the night sky, spectral lights flickering between trees, and enormous birds soaring overhead. Others tell of haunting sounds echoing through the darkness, unexplained calls that seem to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Perhaps most unsettling are the reports of massive black dogs that appear suddenly on roadways before vanishing without a trace. Also, just as an aside, why is it never creepy golden retrievers or something like that? I need a story that has sinister goldens. But I digress. Some theorists suggest these phantom canines might be skinwalker-like entities prowling the Triangle's boundaries. Even law enforcement officers have occasionally shared accounts of bizarre incidents within the region, though official explanations for these strange occurrences remain notably absent. Critics dismiss the Bridgewater Triangle as nothing more than fanciful legend building amplified by media attention. They contend that the area's ghost stories and creature sightings likely stem from misidentified animals, elaborate hoaxes, or folklore that has grown more elaborate with each telling. Nevertheless, the Triangle's enduring fascination may lie in its remarkable ability to ignite our collective imagination. New England's rich tradition of mysterious tales finds perfect expression in this region. I've said it before and I'll say it again. New England is by far the creepiest part of America, at least in terms of supernatural phenomena. This place where ancient forests and sprawling wetlands meet creates an ideal backdrop for encounters that defy easy explanation. Or perhaps it just provides the perfect background for a sighting of an owl at night, to be interpreted as something far more sinister. In pitch-black darkness beneath the Arctic waters, a young Russian naval officer scribbled a last message to his wife, tracing the words by touch on a piece of paper. He was one of 23 crew members who survived 2 devastating explosions aboard the nuclear submarine K-141 Kursk. But the worst was yet to come, and he and the other crew members found themselves trapped 300 feet below the surface with dwindling oxygen. This scenario unfolded in August 2000 when an enormous blast sent the pride of Russia's northern fleet to the bottom of the Barents Sea. The Kursk submarine disaster stands as one of the deadliest submarine incidents in modern history, claiming all 118 lives on board. Launched in 1994, this 450-foot behemoth was about as long as 2 jumbo jets and equipped with a double hull divided into 9 watertight compartments. Designed during the Soviet era to combat U.S. aircraft carrier groups, it carried 2 nuclear reactors and could fire 24 long-range cruise missiles and a mix of heavy torpedoes. At 24,000 tons of displacement, Kursk was the largest attack submarine in service, roughly 3 times the size of the biggest submarines in the U.S. Navy. It had recently been commended as having the best crew in Russia's Northern Fleet, and government officials called it, quote, virtually unsinkable. And seriously, I feel like describing a large ocean-going vessel as unsinkable should be permanently banned. In August 2000, Kursk joined the Russian Navy's first major naval exercise in over a decade. Morale was high as this mighty vessel prepared to demonstrate Russia's naval prowess. No one aboard or in the fleet imagined that the upcoming drill would turn into a nightmare. On the morning of August 12, 2000, Kursk was assigned to fire dummy torpedoes at a cruiser as part of the exercise. At 11:28 a.m. local time, as the crew loaded a large practice torpedo into one of the firing tubes, disaster struck without warning. A violent explosion rocked the submarine's forward compartments, equivalent to the blast of about 250 kilograms of TNT. Nearby vessels in the exercise felt the shock wave and heard a muffled boom, but before anyone could react, a second, far more powerful explosion erupted. This blast was massive, on the order of 3 to 7 tons of TNT, and registered as a 4.2 magnitude seismic event detectable as far away as Alaska. The double explosion blew the Kursk wide open and sent the submarine plummeting to the seafloor at a depth of about 350 feet. It came to rest roughly 50 miles off the Russian coast in the icy Barents Sea, a truly desolate hellscape. Inside the sub's first compartments, the force of the blasts instantly killed most of the crew and tore through bulkheads, collapsing the front of the vessel. Out of 118 personnel on board, only a couple dozen in the stern sections were left alive in the immediate aftermath. The exact cause of the initial explosion was later determined to be a leak of high-test peroxide, a volatile torpedo propellant. Investigators found that a faulty weld in the casing of a practice torpedo had allowed the highly concentrated hydrogen peroxide to seep out and react with metal. This in turn triggered a rapid expansion of gas and a fiery blast. This first explosion in turn ignited a fire in the torpedo room. Mere seconds later, as fire raged in the forward section, the heat caused up to 7 additional torpedo warheads to detonate in a catastrophic chain reaction. Kursk's 2 nuclear reactors luckily shut down automatically and avoided a nuclear meltdown. Within minutes, the unsinkable submarine lay crippled on the ocean floor. Shockingly, however, the rest of the fleet didn't immediately realize anything was wrong. Despite the explosions, Russian commanders initially failed to grasp that Kursk had suffered an accident. For reasons that remain unclear, the submarine's emergency systems, which should have signaled distress, had been disabled, potentially on purpose. Despite the loud explosions, it was only hours later, when Kursk missed a scheduled radio check-in, that alarm bells rang. What followed was a desperate but ill-fated rescue operation that unfolded over the next week. The Russian Navy, unprepared for such a disaster, scrambled its available rescue assets once it finally acknowledged that Kursk was missing. It took more than 16 hours after the blast for the Navy to even locate the submarine on the seabed. When rescue ships arrived at the scene, they found the vessel upright on the seafloor, but connecting to it proved incredibly difficult. Over the next 4 days, Russian teams made repeated attempts to dock diving bells and mini-submarines to Kursk's single rear escape hatch. Each attempt failed spectacularly, hampered by poor visibility, strong currents, extreme cold, and outdated equipment. Relations with Russia and the West were at an all-time high when this event occurred, and many countries surprisingly offered to help. However, in a move widely criticized later, Russian authorities initially refused all foreign assistance, saying no to all outside help. Whether due to pride, secrecy concerns, or false optimism, this delay proved fatal. For 5 days, as Russian rescuers floundered, offers from Britain, Norway, and others were rebuffed. Only on the 5th day of the crisis did President Vladimir Putin authorize acceptance of British and Norwegian help. However, by then, precious time had been lost. Disturbingly, by the time British and Norwegian rescue teams arrived on August 20th, they only found a silent compartment where the survivors had been. In the end, all 118 sailors on Kursk were lost, making it one of the worst naval disasters in Russian history. Though most of Kursk's crew died instantly, a group of 23 sailors in the rear compartments survived the initial explosions and lived for several hours hoping for rescue. As the forward sections flooded and went dark, these men, including Captain Dmitry Kolesnikov, moved toward the 9th compartment at the very back of the submarine. They found temporary refuge there, sealing themselves off from rising water. In a note later recovered from Kolesnikov's body, he described how the survivors had gathered in compartment 9 and tried to use the escape hatch. 2 or 3 crewmen apparently attempted to don escape suits and ascend through the hatch, but their plan failed. It's believed that the hatch might have been damaged, or that the men were thwarted by injuries and the flooding waters. And seriously, it's hard to imagine the absolute terror that must have taken hold at that time. In that frigid, pitch-dark compartment, the surviving sailors faced dwindling oxygen and extreme peril. The final moments for these survivors was perhaps the most horrifying fate of all. An analysis later suggested that as oxygen ran low after several hours, the men tried to activate a chemical oxygen generator to extend their air supply. This was a last-ditch effort to survive just a little bit longer. They knew what they were about to do was dangerous. The men had no choice, though. In the wet, oily environment, the generator likely reacted violently with seawater and caused a flash fire or explosion, consuming the remaining oxygen. The final moments would have been terrifying. A sudden fireball in the confined space, then asphyxiation of any who still remained. In the wake of the disaster, Russia faced the challenge of recovering the Kursk and determining what went wrong. Under intense public pressure, Putin agreed to raise the wreck from the seabed for investigation, despite the technical hurdles. An international salvage team led by a Dutch company was contracted at a cost of roughly $100 million to lift the giant submarine. In October 2001, after months of preparation, engineers used a complex array of cables and cranes to hoist the Kursk out of the mud and transport it to a dry dock. Due to safety concerns, they had to cut off the front section, the site of the torpedo explosions, and leave it on the sea floor. This meant some physical evidence of the very cause of the accident was lost, fueling ongoing speculation as to the true cause of the Kursk disaster. Washington's Gifford-Pinchot National Forest stretches across thousands of acres of wilderness, its towering trees and winding trails offering both beauty and danger. In June 2013, this serene landscape would become the setting for one of the region's most baffling mysteries. Maureen Kelly had always marched to the beat of her own drum. Born on September 26, 1993, the 19-year-old Vancouver, Washington resident lived life on her own terms. Friends knew her by the nickname Anu, and they described someone who embodied a free spirit, laid back, carefree, and deeply affectionate with those she loved. Music flowed through Maureen's veins. She dreamed of becoming a singer and songwriter, spending countless hours crafting melodies and sharing her passion with the world. Her YouTube channel showcased her unique talents, featuring videos of herself strumming the ukulele and beatboxing with infectious enthusiasm. Just 2 days before everything changed, she uploaded what would become her final video to her channel, a new, which is still up till this day. June 9th, 2013 began like any other camping trip. Maureen joined a group of friends at Canyon Creek Campground, nestled deep within the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. The day unfolded peacefully until around 5 p.m., when Maureen made an announcement that would forever alter the trajectory of their weekend getaway. She spoke of a spiritual quest, something she'd been contemplating for quite some time. This wasn't a spontaneous decision, but rather the culmination of deep personal reflection. Or at least, that's what her friends thought at the time, according to reports. What happened next left her friends stunned and worried. Maureen methodically removed every piece of clothing and her shoes, keeping only a fanny pack equipped with 3 essential items: a knife, matches, and a compass. "I'll be back by midnight," she promised before disappearing into the forest's embrace. Midnight came and went. Hours stretched into an agonizing wait as Maureen's friends realized their worst fears were materializing. In the early morning hours of June 10th, they contacted authorities to report her missing. The Skamania County Sheriff's Office mobilized quickly, understanding that time was their enemy. Ground teams and K-9 units fanned out across the challenging terrain, following the only clues Maureen had left behind: bare footprints that matched her foot size. The trail told a story. She had crossed Canyon Creek and headed north toward Forest Service Road 54. Then silence. The footprints vanished, and even the most experienced tracking dogs lost her scent completely. The search teams faced a formidable opponent in the forest itself. Dense woodlands stretched endlessly in every direction, punctuated by steep inclines that could challenge even experienced hikers. The rugged terrain seemed to swallow searchers whole, making every step forward a calculated risk. Notably, while the day had been pleasantly mild, nighttime temperatures plummeted into the mid-40s. For someone without clothing or proper protection, hypothermia became an immediate and life-threatening concern. Despite deploying aerial searches whenever weather conditions allowed, the massive search operation yielded nothing. The absence of answers gave birth to multiple theories, each attempting to explain the impossible. The most widely accepted hypothesis centers on exposure to the elements. With nighttime temperatures dropping dangerously low and Maureen having no protection from the cold, hypothermia presented the most logical explanation for her fate. Others wondered whether the region's largely peaceful but sometimes dangerous wildlife might hold the answer to what happened to her. Bears and cougars call the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest home, and an encounter with either could prove deadly. While attacks on humans are extremely rare, they're definitely not unheard of. But this hypothesis has a problem. Searchers found no evidence to support this theory. No signs of struggle, no traces of blood, nothing to indicate a confrontation with wild animals. If she had been mauled by a bear or taken by a cougar, sniffer dogs would have almost certainly been able to get a scent, at least according to experts. As with many mysterious disappearances, some speculated that Maureen might have chosen to vanish intentionally. She was very much a free spirit, and some believe she sought to disappear into the wilderness and start fresh somewhere off the grid. Her family and friends, however, firmly rejected this possibility. They pointed to her strong relationships and the complete absence of any preparation for such a drastic life change. I personally find this theory completely unrealistic, given that she took off into the woods taking virtually nothing with her. As for why she did what she did, many have speculated that she may have suffered some form of mental breakdown. Unfortunately, she was the age where people are most likely to experience a psychotic break, which could explain the why of this tragedy. If this is in fact the case, it's truly tragic to think that she would have likely been safe had this occurred somewhere other than a national park. The mystery seemed destined to remain unsolved until August 2024 brought unexpected developments. Human remains surfaced in the Gifford Pinchot National Forest, discovered near the very area where Maureen had last been seen. Authorities cautiously announced that the remains could potentially belong to either Maureen Kelly or another hiker who disappeared in the same region during 2013. Forensic analyses are now underway, offering the first glimmer of hope for answers in over a decade.